This is Reggie. This is Brian. And this is R&B Talks.
Episode 5.
What are we going to talk about today, Brian?
We're going to talk about being a person of faith in the workplace.
Just a person of faith in the workplace? Or work? Or what work is? Or...
Well, I think that kind of it's all encompassing, right? Like, I mean, if you look at biblically how work is talked about, it's really
Semantics.
all encompassing. Yeah, it's really all folded into itself. So,
well, the biblical view of work is pretty cool, but we also need to touch on like what it's like to be out in the workforce as a Christian and how that is kind of portrayed and what challenges we see. And I think because that's important to talk about too.
Yeah. And I think talking about two different perspectives, right? Because you're a remote worker. I'm out in the actual, head to head with everybody. So yeah, I think you're right. I think we need to talk about how those things are effective and how we can be effective and how we are affected by it. So I think those are all valid points, my friend.
You were just saying how you enjoyed the pipe tobacco today.
I do. It smells really good. It reminds me of the pipe tobacco my grandfather used to smoke. It's got a very, I don't want to say cherry because that's not the smell, but a very sweet.
Well, sweet would be the problem.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's not sweetened though.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing. I think it's just the way they did the fermentation on the Virginias or something.
I was going to say, does that have something to do with like the fermentation process?
Yeah, it probably does. I mean, because I haven't tried this before. This is the Down Yonder Seattle Pipe Club. I haven't tried it, so this is my first ghetto. And the Meerschaum's different too because the actual pipe tobacco actually it tastes different, dude. If you have it out of a Meerschaum versus a briar versus a corn cob versus it's different. So clay.
So what's
pipes.
different about, like yours is a Meerschaum pipe. What's different about how it comes through a Meerschaum pipe?
Because of the way Meerschaum's porous and it's not flammable.
Uh-huh. So
it really helps to like filter out bad stuff.
Okay.
And then you get good stuff. Yeah. I guess that's the highest possible kind of way to put it. The material just makes it to where the actual act of smoking is, I wouldn't say cleaner, but it is like, it's different than it is on like a wood pipe or something.
Well, I have noticed that the smoke is a lot more white coming through that pipe than it is through other ones.
Well, that could be too, just because of the pipe tobacco. Because I mean, this is it's hard to keep it lit, for one thing. So it's probably me just having to light it more. But
okay, all right. Well, how was your week in the world, my friend? It's
been challenging, dude. I mean, I've really had to concentrate on not letting my work interfere with my family life.
Mm-hmm.
When it's well, we're going to talk about work. I mean, because that's for most of us, that's really where we spend the majority of our time is making a living for, making money for our family to live on. Right.
Yeah.
And that majority of the time, if that's not going well and it's that much of your time and effort, it will and can affect the rest of your thing. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today. But so for me as like a manager, mid-level manager type of person, it's tough. And it's tough in this economy, that's the thing. Companies are looking out for their bottom line and for their, what's their margins and, all that stuff. And, there's not as much, revenue because there's no, the way the economy is. So, and different businesses are affected differently. So yeah, it's just tough, dude, because I'm having to rationalize stuff. I'm having to explain a lot of things and trying to set expectations and, it's just rough, man. And I don't have the resources to do what I need to do. That's really what bothers me. It's not so much that, the way business works. It's just that it's just the way things are. There's just not enough resources for me to actually be successful right now. And it really bothers me. I'm not a person, as you know, I'm very competitive. I want to be the best damn person in anything I do. And when it's not me that's that's holding me back from something, it's like, oh, that really just irritates the living nonsense out of me, man. And but it is just, and I don't want to say, and here, okay, going on work, I don't like it when people say, oh, it's just work. Well, your work matters.
It does, yes.
Your work matters. And so I don't want to say that it's just work, so I'll just let it go. No. I mean, this is my career. This is where I've been at. I've been at the same company for over 15 years now. I've been in this industry for over 20 years. So, it is a big part of my life. And but you got to put it in perspective, is that it's an engine for an economy.
Yeah.
So I'm in a corporation that exists because of capitalistic principles, and that's what they work as. No matter how left-leaning they espouse, I mean, that's still the point.
Yeah, it's still a capitalist company that
still
there needs to be a profit, right?
Yeah. What about you, man?
Well, the stuff with the house, we spoke about that. But outside of that, work is actually flourishing for me at this point. Like, as I've said, I am in the fitness industry. I'm a personal trainer. So part of building my business is getting my name out there and doing that. And I'm finally starting to get people who are coming in and asking for me by name, right? Hey, I want to talk to Brian Kirby, right?
Do you judge your success based on number of clients or how well your clients do?
Always by how well my clients do. Financially, of course, your number of clients have to be higher, right? But told you it was good.
Oh, dude. It
was amazing.
What did I do? I got to remember that.
You're not going to. It's okay.
You know what it was? I'm sorry, man. It's totally throwing this whole range in this conversation. But like so this is my new grinder, right?
Yeah. You're like 85,000 RPM sand grinding.
Well, no, I mean, like, look, coffee nerds are insane, man. So if you go look at these like Reddit posts or forums or whatever, holy cow, they'll debate about all kinds of stuff. And it's insane. And like, I'm into coffee, bro, but like, I don't have time or money to like measure the granules of coffee that comes out of grinders and say, in general, this was a difference of 0.03 microns or something, like, wow. But yeah.
Who has time for that?
No, but they do, bro. Ugh. And how much is left in the grinder? Like, you're trying to get to like a zero retention for the grinds in the grinder. Like,
in other words, using everything you grind.
Everything you grind, you want to come out as close as you can, and you never get to pure zero. But this is supposed to be one of those. It's just for those who are watching. It's the niche duo. So it's got 83 millimeter flat burrs, and then, but it's made my coffee better.
Dude, I drink your coffee, and that's a hard thing to do.
I know,
make your coffee
but
better.
It did. I mean, now I had a Breville smart grinder that I thought was fine until my grinder downstairs went bad. So then that's why I got this one, so I could take the one I had down here and use it for downstairs for just general coffee. Bro, this is just that. It's like 2 shots of that El Salvador roast, light roast coffee with a little cinnamon honey, that Fire Bee cinnamon honey I got, and whole milk. Or no, sorry, not whole milk, but heavy cream.
It's fantastic. I told you it was fantastic. Dude. When you handed it to me and I took a drink, I was like,
yeah, I know, but like I hadn't had it yet. And I'm like,
you didn't write that down, right? So you're forever going to be chasing.
Dude, I didn't even measure anything or nothing. I'm just like, burr, burr, burr. A little water here, a little water.
Squirt, squirt, fizz, fizz, whiz, whiz. Here it is, buddy.
I'm like, damn it, I'm going to forget this for sure.
No, in case you haven't noticed, Reggie's the pipe. I'm the coffee. I love coffee. Reggie loves pipes. Reggie makes good coffee. So he's got the advantage honestly, because I don't do pipes, and that's just sad for me, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to, work that out.
We've talked about this. Like the pipe is definitely a prop.
Yeah.
For me, it's gotten so much where it's integral in my work, even that the pipe helps me take a minute, sort my thoughts before I say something, all that stuff. And this goes back to our other episode where we talked about professionalism and how the smoking pipes and stuff from our opinion was like, no, it's a good thing.
Well, but think about let's put away with like the 1800s where like they were riding through the Midwest on wagons. But if you think back like 60s, 70s, even in the 80s, smoking a pipe the person was always seen as stately and, cigarettes had a different kind of onus, right? They didn't have the same, and cigars are great. But a pipe is almost it's mature, right? Does that make sense? Like, I don't see how anybody could look at somebody smoking a pipe and be like, you look terrible doing that. That's unprofessional.
Yeah.
Well, if you were if you had like some kind of giant, like pipe that you were like, had to hold with two hands and you looked a little bit greedy, maybe, but unfortunately, and you don't do that, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, dude, it's like all these really intelligent people were pipe enthusiasts, dude. I mean, like if Einstein, he smoked a pipe. His doctor said you got to stop because you're going to get cancer, right? And so he did, but he still held a pipe in his mouth all the time. Yeah. And it's in the Smithsonian. And he gnawed the hell out of that thing, man. It's like the end of it's just shredded. But that's because that's what he obviously was used for something. I mean, and there's so many famous quotes out there, about pipe smoking. But I would say, though, just going back to that episode and just to kind of say that it's an integral part of how I do work. And because I'm remote, I'm able to do that, right? That's like I've spent all this money here with the filters and everything else to make sure that, it's good here. Yeah. And it definitely helps me focus. It does. So
so be it.
Let me ask you this. So if we're going to tackle the topic, I know your house has been a little bit of I know that's been on your mind a lot. I think it would be kind of a good thing though, if we say it did get to you.
It did. It very much did. I take the safety, security of my family extraordinarily seriously, and my ability to provide and to be a good husband. And I honestly, I can't tell you why, because we've had bigger, worse things roll out in front of us, and I've taken the hit and just kept rolling. But I think it was just kind of I felt like we were in this really good place where things were going really smoothly and we were gaining momentum. And then this one was just right out of left field. Like one of those things where you didn't have a suspicion, you didn't think it was coming. And I think it hitting me, but it was a great test, right? It hit me and I was aggravated with myself and proud of myself at the same time. I was aggravated with myself because I think in my heart of hearts, man, I knew it wasn't that big a deal. Like I was like, you know what? It'll be okay. But I for some reason it just felt way bigger than it was. I can't explain why it felt that big, but it was the difference between getting run over by a kid on a big wheel and getting hit by a Mack truck, man. Like I felt like I know I was getting run over by a kid on a big wheel, but I felt like I got hit by a Mack truck.
I would say, Brian, there are a lot of times when you're not prepared, but you're able to like take those knees and buckle a little bit and accept those a little bit better. I know from my experience, there's sometimes when I think, man, I got everything cool. And then there's just this one little thing that really wouldn't have bothered me at any point else, but yet for some reason, and it's just, who knows what that is, but it happens, dude. Yeah. But the important thing is though, it's a good illustration though, of like something that it's not small, but it's really in the scheme of our
the grand
lives,
scheme of it all. It was,
really doesn't I mean, okay, so what?
But I was super proud of myself because I followed my own advice.
It's hard to do.
Which is hard to do, but I sought wise counsel. I talked to you. I talked to some very good friends of mine from church. I went to people that I knew when I couldn't keep a level head, they would have a level head, right? And that the advice that I would get wouldn't be weighted. It would be straight down the middle, and it would be solid advice. And I think because of those people, I was able to come out of it and get myself back on track pretty quickly. And of course, credit to my wife, who, really stayed, and she had her moments, but really stayed strong in it and never let me forget, like, it could be worse, right? So, we talk about, surrounding ourselves with wise counsel. We talk about how solid our wives are, and that all came out. It was really funny how that all came to the surface last week, or this week, I should say. It's Saturday. So this week, it all just kind of brought itself to focus. And I even thought about that today as I was working, because I was also doing some more research for a topic. And I was like, wow, it's like wives, worldview, all that kicked in, right? Call came crashing to the center. And I was very, but it did. It took me off my game for a few days. Like, and I had to work hard to get myself back to center, but again, taking advantage of the things that we talk about, right? And getting ourselves back there. So, and just so we're not two strangers that met each other. Yeah. Reggie and I talk other than the podcast.
Well, you say that, but
we text a lot.
Yeah. We do. For guys now in this day and age, right? It's really different than like in my dad's heyday. You know what I mean? Because there wasn't all the social media stuff or even cell phones. It was like they met up at a bar, twice a week or something, or almost every night, or something, depending on the guy. And that's where they had their guy time, right? Yeah. And today it's not. Today we're texting on phones or whatever. But I still think there's a necessity for. Actually, I think there's more of a necessity now for a physical, encounter rather than just sitting there through text or whatever. I think there's a real cause to get together more with your guy dudes, whatever it may be.
Well, and think of it this way. That's part of what this is for me. Because really, this is, you and I talk well before we start doing the podcast, right? And we're really just talking about things, and sometimes we just talk and BS, and sometimes we talk about things that are impactful and effective. It's extraordinarily important, and it's something that's dying on the vine with this younger generation, is the face-to-face part of communication. Nothing frustrates me more than when someone goes, well, why are you mad? And I'll go, I don't know what you mean. Well, you texted me this, so you're obviously mad. And I have to look at them and go, texts have no context. You have no idea where I'm at. Or, I had a situation one time where a guy goes, well, you were on I texted him something, and he texted me back, and he goes, well, why are you on 10? And I was like, dude, I'm just texting you what's going on. I don't really know what you mean by I'm on 10, but it would be different if we were on the phone and I was yelling into the phone. But when I send someone a text, it has no emotion or context to it whatsoever. It's just the words I need to use to relay what's happening at that point, right? So it's so important for us to talk to each other. It's so important for us to be okay with talking to each other, right? Communicating, engaging, being a support system, right?
But
I like how you were very emphatic with that. Go ahead.
We had this company thing during my sales kickoff. I don't remember. It was a big event, and they had a Gen Z roundtable.
Uh-huh.
And it's like ending it, like if you send somebody a message through whatever and it end it with a period, they're like, think you're mad. Yeah, I don't know.
How does using proper
yeah,
grammatical...
dude. I mean, and then like you need to use emojis or something in order to mean you're not. I don't know. I didn't even really understand it. I was like multitasking at the time, but I had several on my team say, "Did you see that?" I'm like, "No." I said I kind of was watching, but I was actually being productive.
I'd actually like to listen to that.
I know. I need to go back and like I was thinking about that today, dude. I was like, okay, but no, I'm abrupt a lot of times with my messaging, and it's especially to my son, dude. It's like, but obviously he knows me now, but I sometimes still think, I wonder if he's going to get butthurt because I just. It's like, but then I can't worry about it. I mean, I really can't.
Well, you got to understand, man, more often than not, when you send someone something like a text message, if they're wrecked over your message, it has nothing to do with you. Unless, like, does everybody laugh out loud?
Yeah,
like, I get LOL sometimes, right? I understand. But when that's at the end of every text you send, are you really maniacally laughing that much all the time? Is that really what's going on in your house?
Are people staring at you?
Yeah. But for me, but I think this goes back to, and we're getting off topic, but I have to say this. This goes back to the facts versus feelings conversation. Feelings, I feel like your text was angry. The facts are I used proper grammar and punctuation to relay information to you with no context, so you don't have any reason to think that I'm mad. You and I both are pretty aggressive dudes in the sense that we're okay with letting people know when we're not happy. Not in an angry or aggressive way, but if I'm in a situation where I feel like you've violated the air between the two of us, I don't have a problem in having not necessarily a confrontational conversation, but putting it on the table. Like, yeah, this really sucked, and I don't want to do.
But that's the thing, though. We've gone so far from the communication methods that were like effective.
Yeah.
In both enabling you to like illustrate your emotion. I don't know why I had the book out there, but yeah, like, so now that everybody's like on their phone all the time and not talking at all.
Yeah.
Like how are you going to tell if somebody's like emotional about something? Like, and apparently it's through emojis and all this stuff, but I don't have an emoji dictionary to go like, okay, this emoji means like exactly, or it could be this in this context, or it could be this. That's way more complicated. And that's what I mean. Like, I really worry about the communication skills of the next generation here, because how are they going to speak in public? Is everybody just going to whip out their phone and not even talk? They're just going to like, have like an AI go, and Reggie said that you must do, and then, oh, happy face, heart, poop symbol. I don't know. Like, what? Golly, man.
If you want a great example, go into any restaurant that's not a Cracker Barrel and look across the restaurant and see all these young couples who are out to dinner together, but they're not talking to each other, and their faces are buried in their phones. How strong is your relationship that you can't sit 4 feet from each other, which is usually the average distance of a table, and have just a polite conversation? It's
so bad. Me and my wife and my two girls were at Texas Roadhouse, and it's been, I don't know, a couple months ago. It wasn't even that long ago. And there was a couple an older couple sitting over there, and they came up to us when they were leaving. They said, by the way, I just want to say it's really good to see you guys not staring at your phones.
Yeah.
And all this stuff. And it took me off guard for a minute. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's really that big of a problem. And I'm like, man, thanks, dude. But we just don't, We just don't. We make it a point to, like, when we have dinner, our phones go away. Unfortunately, because I work, sometimes I have to have it out and check my emails or something. But in general, yeah, we have a rule. When we're at dinner table, we do that. And he's like, "That's a good rule." I said, "God bless. Have a good day." It was good. It was like, well, okay, cool. But yeah, we don't. That's a general rule for us, man. We won't do that. I mean, when the girls get older, they have phones of their own, so those things are gonna have to stay down.
Yeah.
And when we're at the dinner table, nope. So let me ask you this, Brian.
Okay. Lay it on me, dude.
You work in a different environment, in a context that is something I don't have to deal with generally, and that is with the public.
Yep.
And in person.
Yep.
So what I would say is, how, like, in general, is with all the nonsense going on today, like, do you feel, does the culture make your interactions different than what they would be normally? I'll say that.
And I say this with the utmost confidence. Absolutely not. And the reason is, I'm aware of how I present and the force of my words when I use them. But I'm also very aware that I don't live ashamed of who I am or what I believe. So I'm transparent. I'll call it transparent with kindness, right? Like, I understand that the younger generation right now has so many things going on that is pulling them away from the center, the truth. So when I speak or have a chance to speak with people about what I believe, how I do things, I'm very transparent, but I'm very, very, very sure to speak with kindness, right? And don't get me wrong, there's frustrating times, right? I hear a lot of stuff from especially Gen Z and younger, a lot of things that are really just disturbing to hear. Like, they're not morally centered at all. They're not based in any fact at all. They're sound bites. They speak in sound bites. And it's, but what I try to do is just be very open and honest with them, and, just like the other day, I had a young client, communicate to me that he was struggling with something. And I just said, well, I'll pray for you. And he kind of looked at me and I was like, I'll pray for you, man. My family and I will pray for you. And I wasn't like, I want to pray for your soul, right? I was just like, dude, I'll pray for you, man. I'll put one up there for you, right? Like, I don't really allow other people's hard right or hard left or anything kind of take me off my tilt when it comes to who I am, right? Like, now I'll say this, maybe 10 years ago, I would have, put myself in some kind of, political correctness confinement. But I've gotten so tired of being told that for being a Christian, strong male who wants to take care of my family, that I'm some kind of patriarchal psycho, that I just have said, you know what, I'm stripping it all away and we're just going to be me. Right. And, believe it or not, I've gotten a really positive response. Now, I've bumped into the occasional person that they don't really yell, but you can tell they're kind of put off by the way I communicate and when I say certain things. But overall, no, I think really, I think there's a shift right now out there socially a little bit. I think where cancel culture took a hit, I think where a lot of the hard left ideas that were out there are starting to surface for what they are, has changed people's, or the way people assimilate information and the way they respond to information. Right. So I think probably during COVID or slightly pre-COVID, it would have been a little more difficult. But at that time I was working in sales. So, I really wasn't having those conversations. My job was to fill someone's needs and make those sales and get on down the road. But now, no, I will say that being who I am and being open to who I am in the workplace, especially, has opened my eyes to just how much people are in need of a positive message. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's really different for me.
Yeah.
I have a completely different, and it's kind of uncanny how different my work life is. Since I'm in a, multi-billion-dollar global company that has 25,000 employees, and
Yep.
not only do I have to deal with the political affiliations of the leadership of the company, of the executive teams which is far left, but also global cultural things as well, because I have a global team. And so I'm not ever not me. I should say that. But I per company regulations, like, I can't wear religious symbols. Okay. In location or whatever. You're not supposed to do that.
Even like a cross on a chain.
I don't think so.
That?
I think you're not really allowed. Like, I don't know how it's policed, but it is in the handbook. Like, that's what you're.
See,
you're
that's crazy to me.
Well, it is, but look, yeah. And there used to be a point in my life where I've been a rebel, just wore like a huge one and just wore it around. But that symbol does not mean I am I am trying to be like Christ anyway. So I can better show that through who I am and like what I do, rather than a symbol that I wear. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I approached all of it, really. I don't have to preach a gospel principle or something in my workplace in order to show Jesus in real life.
Yeah. But
it's hard. It's hard. And I'll tell you, because it's almost like there's times when I feel like, if this was normally, I would say this, but then I have to kind of put it in a different way. And I tell you where it really comes up: when somebody's going through something.
Mm-hmm.
Through company communication methods, I kind of lay off some things where I wouldn't have, but I'll still say, like, I'm going to be praying for you, man, or something like that. But then what I'll do, if I have their personal information, it'll be like out of hours on my own phone, and I'll try to contact them like that.
Yeah. And
talk to them that way, outside of company, like communication and systems and all that stuff. And we may or may not get into conversations about stuff.
Well, that was a question I had. Being that you're working remote, are your opportunities to have those kind of conversations limited?
Oh, very limited.
Yeah.
Very limited. I mean, because you're on just meetings, right? I got a calendar, and I got meetings I schedule, and I occasionally get phone calls and stuff, and I turn on my camera so that we can see each other, but we're not, there's not like a sidebar at the water cooler, kind of thing. I will say this though, when I've been to actual events that the company has had, lots of conversations happen outside of things, whether it be about bourbons or pipes or cigars or Christianity or whatever. There's a lot of conversations that are had when you're in person. So yeah, I'd say outside of those, you don't really have them in a remote situation.
When you're out in the world,
mm-hmm.
kind of comparatively, do you struggle talking to people about what you believe, or are you pretty, I know you as that person who's very forward, but I've never been with you during one of those conversations or one of those opportunities.
Well, no, I don't have any issue. If it presents itself.
Yeah.
Cause let me say this. When I know from when I was in my 20s, been beat over the head with the Bible and was done. You could not have, I don't care who you are. It would take Jesus himself to appear to me before that would make a difference if you were to come out and say anything about Jesus.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, I know sometimes the door's closed and it ain't going to open.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So the way I go about it in public, like I'll fish, I'll poke a couple, whether it be a couple questions. If it's really a conversation we're having and that stuff comes up, I know when I used to play like out at bars and stuff in bands, you know, you'd play, it'd be like a 4-hour, 5-hour window of time you're playing and you take 15-minute breaks or 10 minutes break, whatever. And I'd be smoking a cigar or something outside or whatever. There were a lot of times where I'd have conversations with people and they'd be like, man, and you know, and I guess I'm kind of a magnet for the people who are having trouble.
Yeah.
And they kind of tell me what they're going through rather than not. That's usually how it happens. And I'd be like, well, and I'd ask the question, like, do you go to a church? Or do you affiliate with something or whatever? And the answer was yes or no. And then, I mean, that took me to another place. You know, so I don't ever shy away from that, but I'm not like that sidewalk preacher guy who will just run up to random people and go, do you know Jesus?
Yeah.
You know,
not that guy either.
And I don't think that's effective. I mean, you know, you have to be relatable to them in order for you to be a trusted source of wisdom. And you're not going to be that unless you've connected in some way that they say, oh, this guy's worth listening to.
Well, you know, I feel bad for those situations because you and I have both known people who are quote unquote street preachers.
Indeed.
And I think that type of ministry comes from a place of ego, not a place of love. You become, I think it's almost, you become self-idolatry, right? Like I'm so good at talking about God that I can just go out and just randomly accost people.
Well,
with, you know,
it depends on how you're doing it though. Like I've seen some really successful, like street preachers who aren't yelling at people.
Yeah, but I think it's all in how you approach it, right? Like,
that's what I mean.
You know, for me, I don't know, I've been blessed a lot in the last couple of years, especially to be able to talk to people and walk into situations where, you know, even though we might be on completely ends of the spectrum, for some reason they're open to talk. You know, I don't, that's just a weird thing with me, man. I've never, like, it doesn't really, it's like talking about sports for me. If I'm talking with somebody, I've, you know, just ask questions, man. And I don't ask like hyper personal questions. I just listen to them and then kind of guide the conversation as to where they're going. So,
but that's being prepared.
Yeah.
So, and that's really the key. Like, one of the, it's funny, one of the key points in the class I'm taking now for like teaching scripture is to be prepared.
Yeah.
You know, your preparation is key. Like what you do in silence is more important than what, you know, that's like everything. So like for us now in where we're at, you know, we've kind of had time to be prepared for conversations. We've already had conversations, you know, and it's a lot. There's the fear of what happens is lessened because of our preparation.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really ever, you know, never really fear having those conversations, right? Because it's just, you know, I am very interested in knowing where people are coming from. Again, as I said on the very first episode that we did, I'm all about open dialogue. Mm-hmm. You know, I am not egotistical enough to believe that I know everything. And I want to hear different perspectives. I want to hear different life experiences. Will I ever tell anybody, oh, you're right, you know, Christ doesn't exist? No. But I will listen to their story. I will try to understand where they're coming from, and I will continue to have open dialogue, right? Which at work for me is a lot easier because I'm one of the older, you know, employees at the job. So I became a personal trainer at 45 years old. So
it's different.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm looked at, even though I've only been doing that for 3 years now, I'm looked at as almost a senior in the position. So a lot of the stuff I said or I say, I feel like is treated as it's coming from a place of wisdom, which gives you a little bit of an advantage, right? So in all of your time working in what you do, and I know you weren't always remote, right? You were traveling a lot.
Oh yeah, traveling a lot. Yeah.
What did you feel was the most common response you got when you had a chance to talk to somebody about what you did in your job? Was it very tense conversation, or was it very open conversation? Or
So what I do for work?
yeah, like if you were traveling and you went somewhere and you had a chance to have that conversation, right? You met somebody and you began to talk. Did you more often get resistance, or did you get pretty open conversation?
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. So, and I still travel. So I really, that's still there. But so part of this gig when I first got it was traveling and going to these places, and you're like, you don't know who you're going to be standing in front of. It could be a board of directors. It could be C-level people. It could be just the administrators or whatever. Or a mixture of all.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was interesting for me when I did that. I loved it because I got to just get in front of so many people, and like, I just like to communicate. So at first it's pretty scary. I mean, if you're in this industry, when you first start getting out there and like getting in front of people and you're trying to be an expert about something, and you're either trying to get them to buy something, trying to get a solution for them, or they've paid you to do something and you're there to do it. So you better have your stuff in a row. Like your ducks better be rolling right in that line, and they better hit the point, because they're paying you a lot of money. So when it comes to communication, it really came quick, because it had to, about how to communicate to different people. And it really wasn't hard for me. When that gets outside of work, like, so you're going out to dinner with maybe a client or something, it is once again where you're not just waiting till you're outside of bounds and you're like, oh, well, do you know Jesus and all this stuff? You're not doing that, because you're still there doing a job.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of times when, over the course of however long it is, where you figure out where they're at,
mm-hmm.
Because that's part of what I'm doing anyway. As I would say, a consultative approach, I'm already digging for things.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to get there faster if I can connect to them personally.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm already knowing like what they're into, all kinds of stuff, so that we can talk and get there faster. I can be more of a trusted advisor than anything else. So there's a lot of times I've had conversations, man, about things and about like troubles. I mean, there's been more than one person I've talked to about their marital difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
When I've been on site. We'd be at a bar getting a drink, and they were like, yeah, and then here we are. Now we're really talking about something that matters to them. And I kind of can be really perceptive about emotional things. Once I get, like, at first I don't assume anything, but I'll when I start talking to somebody, I'll get some ideas. I'll think, okay, that guy's having some insecure problems, or there's something going on where he's really unfocused here. There's something, I'll start building these like list of things in my head. And then over time there'll actually be like substance to like match things up. And now all of a sudden, now I got a pretty good idea where they're at. And so it allowed me to like really be effectual in what I was doing, dude. I mean, especially communicate and again, it's part of, people want to tell me what their problems are sometimes. And let me say this, that isn't a result of me looking a certain way or being like overly nice or anything like that. It's really because I'm genuine in everything I do. Absolutely nonstop, genuine. There is no doubt. If you have a work conversation with me, a personal conversation with me, you are getting the same Reggie. Now I may not say some of the same things, or I may phrase things a little different, but absolutely you're not going to hear anything that I wouldn't. I mean, it's core me. And that's what makes my success evident. Flat out. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
It did. It actually did. Well, that goes back to listening, right? Like I do a lot of listening. One of the things that, you ask my wife is she'll say a lot of times, I didn't think you were listening. Guess what? I'm always listening. Not because I'm trying to hear something that shouldn't be said, but how can you ever approach someone? How can you ever give anything of that's genuine if you're not listening? I mean, the worst in my opinion, committed by the current church, current Western church, is this: I'm going to hit you with Jesus before I know your name, right? And what I mean by that is, you and I both know, and we've met enough people that have been going through enough things that they may not need you to crack them over the head with Jesus right in the beginning. Sometimes you got to get down in the dirt with that person and get to know them personally and get to know where their pain's at and where they're coming from and all of those things before you start talking about salvation, right?
Well, let me step in.
Yeah.
There's been more than one time where I know someone, they were really going, I mean, like they had some real stuff they were having to do.
Yeah.
Jesus was not on their mind. Like they're coming to church looking for something because they felt bad or, they just wanted to get some whatever, but they're not thinking like where their salvation is. They're thinking about like how they're going to pay their bills next month.
Yeah.
How am I going to take care of my family? And so if you get to the point where you're actually communicating and they trust you enough to start talking to you in a real way, living life, and then you step in and show Jesus that way, that's where it happens.
Yeah.
And so the westernized Christian church misses out on a lot of things because they're focused so much on that. Well, it's Jesus is the answer. Jesus, Jesus. He is, but not always does somebody have to say a prayer. Mm-hmm. Not always does somebody have to have this like miraculous experience. When that thief was on the cross with Jesus, that guy didn't say a prayer.
No.
He didn't get baptized. He didn't do anything. He just acknowledged that Jesus was there.
Yeah.
And just asked that, and that was it. And all of a sudden now he gets to dine, gets to feast at the same table Jesus is. Well, and we got to remember that in the westernized Christian church.
Well, you got to also realize that they are dealing with the consequence usually when they come in. They're not dealing with the preamble to whatever's happened. Most people who arrive in the church have had something immensely heartbreaking or devastating happen, and it's caused them to realize that the God-shaped hole inside of them is not full.
Yeah.
Now they don't yet recognize what that is, right? Like they don't go, oh, I have a God-shaped hole, I'm going to go fill it. But they're looking for a place that might have answers, right? So for me, if I'm trying to help somebody or get to know somebody, I might just offer my hand, hey, yeah, you're struggling with that, man. I'm sorry to hear that. Is there something that I can do to help you?
Have you ever had the experience where you said like they come up and they see, they want prayer and you just say, they're just like, yeah, man, I just need prayer. Just need prayer. And then you start praying and all of a sudden you say one thing
mm-hmm.
and you don't, it's like if they're having, you say like, we pray for their family and that they, whatever troubles they're going through. And all of a sudden you hear the sob and you're like, oh, yeah. I just hit it.
Yeah. I just tapped it right on the head.
I just freaking nailed it right there. Yep. And then you're like, and then it's like, oh, I didn't hit anything. Thank you, Lord. Yeah. It was all him. Right.
Yeah.
and you're just like, and then you get done, you're just like, whoa. It's a whoa moment, dude.
Yeah. Prayer opens doors to things that we have no idea about, right? Like, and I take prayer seriously in the sense that is my direct line, right? To ask, to give, to talk, to give thanks, all those things. And sometimes somebody will come up to you and say, I need prayer. And you'll go, is there anything specific that I can pray for? And they have no idea what they want. They're just like, no, I just need some prayer, right?
I am tickled you actually brought this up, because I was thinking today, I was looking at some things about ethics and what, what some people say about what if they hate their job or whatever. But I thought about, I pray in my job a lot.
Yeah.
And I should say I did. And I thought about today is like one of the reasons why I may have been more stressed out lately than not is because I haven't been doing those small little prayers. Because, dude, I don't know why. I don't even know why. But I would just go like, hey, Lord, I'm about to go into this meeting. I just want, I just need your help here. Guide me to say the right things, do all this stuff. And I haven't been doing that in and I think for a Christian man who's working, you need to have prayer part of your work life.
For sure.
And that I could just declare right now that makes a huge difference into how your day goes.
Well, I mean, doing what I do, I teach and I train individuals, I teach classes. And a lot of times, well, actually most times, I will step to the side. My class is starting to fill up. I'll step off to the side and I'll just say a quick prayer. God, first of all, thank you for my opportunity to serve these people. Let me give them something that will help them physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And most of all, thank you for giving me the ability to be able to do this, right? Like I pray throughout the day. Julie, she laughs a lot, but she'll be like, what'd you do today? I'll be like, I prayed a lot, a lot. Some days I pray a lot because, you run into so many things and the world is so disaffected and broken right now that I just, I'll see something going on. I'm like, man, that needs prayer. Right. And I think that the weird thing is people think that prayer is this, oh, I'm going to drop to my knees and clap my hands together and woe is me and thou art thee. And actually, no, man, sometimes it's just a quick conversation, right? Hey, Lord, I'm here. I need your help. This person's hurting. Give me some words, right?
Prayer is interesting in that it's not a requirement for God.
Yeah.
It's not for him. It's for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit, it's such a huge benefit to be able to say something. So it's not necessarily that God is going to you're going to hear like English in your mind of God speaking to you. But when you pray, that's an acknowledgement. You just said something that you wanted to say to God. And so you get this, it's an acknowledgement for you that you have brought that to us. He already knew.
Yeah.
He already knew what you're going to do. He already just solved it. But by your act of prayer, you just allowed that for yourself to be acknowledged.
Well, and just because God doesn't speak to you in a loud and boastful voice doesn't mean that I have not had moments of God-breathed experiences.
Yes.
Where I've felt him in what I'm doing, right? There are times where I have almost felt like a hand on my shoulder, right? You need to go do this. You need to go say this. You need to go love this person, right? And you've had it. Sometimes something will pop up in your mind. I remember this guy was this. I'm going to give him a call. That's God, man. That's not us. By nature as humans, we're selfish and we're wrapped up in what's going on with us. Right?
Oh yeah, dude. For real.
So I believe that, I believe that we have God-breathed experiences all the time. I said this to a good friend of mine. Do you want to know why we don't see the bigger miracles? And she looked at me and said, why? And I said, because we've become blind and desensitized to the small ones, right? And the God putting somebody in front of you to talk to and to care for and to pray for is a miracle, because you're not going to find that person. That's his will bringing that person to you, right? I'm not going to be able to just walk out here and be like, those 9 people need to be prayed for. God gives us the spirit of discernment and vision to see these things, so when he sends them to us, that we recognize the opportunity. But yeah,
it's freaking just unreal when I'll know that I'm trying to even think of an example. I know there's been a few times where like you're like driving somewhere and you'll be like, I forgot this or whatever. You have to turn around and go get it. You come back and it'll be like, there's just an accident that just happened. You're like, I wonder if I did that in order to avoid doing something. Or you'll run into somebody when you made a detour that you didn't expect. All kinds of those things. I mean, there are no coincidences.
Yeah.
Coincidences don't exist. They're a way for us to explain things away, but that's not the truth. Yeah. There's no coincidences. It's all a plan, and it's all for a reason.
It's all engagement.
And if we're not praying and reading and stuff like that, well, we won't see those as for what they were, the acts of the movement of God in our lives. But this goes to work. You know, it's easy to get, because I have to deal with all these things, all these measures and these different people and the attitudes and like executives and stuff who now, thankfully, look, let me say this. I don't get an opportunity to speak to the executive people a lot, but when I do, it's not the old traditional way of thinking about who a C-level person is and how they think they're somebody high and mighty or whatever. And I don't get that from my leadership. Okay. But it's a business. And this is what I think for any corporate Christian person, especially for those who aren't in management, who are contributors or of some sort, they're running a business and they're looking at the business as a whole and making decisions to try to make that business more profitable for the express purpose of not just money for executives in the board of directors or whatever, but to grow the business, to have more opportunities. And sometimes it's just that. It's like, where can I have more people engaged here? And that is a thought that some of these people have. They're not all evil.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's important, because at the end of the day, here's my experience here. That's really big for people who really need to I don't know who needs to hear this. Somebody needs to hear this. You getting fired is not a big deal. You getting laid off is not a big deal. You think it is. If I got laid off tomorrow, I'd be like, oh, right? Yeah. And I know, but you have to understand that we live in a country of opportunity, and it's still there. No, and even if the economy the way it is, you really just need to not be afraid of change, to understand that that's a door being opened somewhere else. That door is closing for a reason. It's not about what you did wrong. It's not about, it could be absolutely nothing to do with you. It's just a matter of that revenue for something did this or whatever, or they're deciding to cut back this and they need to do that. It's a signal that it's a change for you. It's like that freaking bat signal in the sky that says there's something else you need to go do. It's scary. And it could be, if you let it can be a really source of a lot of stress and everything. And hopefully I'm not talking to myself.
I hear you.
But you really got to go. It's really one of those things. It's just, it's a part of the business, and right or wrong, they're looking out for that business. Now, how they do it, that's kind of not cool sometimes. But at the end of the day, it's a signal, and you should just accept that signal for where it is, and it's time to just move on and go find something else. Now, as a corporate corporate person who works for a corporation, you need to understand this. And I mean, that whole preparedness thing that we've been talking about, be prepared. Same thing there. That goes to financial. That goes to everything. Make sure you got your resume always updated. Make sure you're establishing connections to other people just all the time. Just make sure that network is there. Make sure that you have money set aside. So in case you're off work for like 3 or 4 months, you're not going to like lose your house and all that kind of stuff. Those are the things that you really need to do to make sure that's not. And especially if you're a Christian, man, look, have faith. And I'll tell you what really hit the nail on the head for me with this is about work. Matthew 6, when Jesus talk about worry, and he says, like, that bird that you see in the sky, does it have to worry about where it's eating? No. God provides for that bird, that, the lamb and the, whatever. He gives like a whole bunch of these things, but at the end of that whole little section is about worry. And about, if you have a lot of worry, you have little faith. Yeah. And he plainly says, don't worry about tomorrow. I got you.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to use that as a mantra almost sometimes. You have to. Jesus himself said, don't worry, have faith. The animals are taken care of. You're loved. You for sure will be taken care of. And that's what you got to look for and put your faith there. And I mean, that's huge, dude. That is such a huge, and that could lift a burden off your head. Because if you think about it, it's okay. Then if he's got me, he's got me.
Very true. Very true. So here's a question. You brought this up a little earlier. You mentioned it. Let's talk about work ethic and work ethics. I think that's a very strong.
Jordan Peterson has a lot to say on ethics.
Very much so, yes.
Okay. And one of the, let me get my notes, because I mean, I was taking, I was listening to the importance of being ethical. He was on the Hoover Institution YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And really, he was talking about, oh man, I can't remember his name, but the guy from Hoover Institute that was interviewing Jordan, do you believe in God? And he kind of talked about what his kind of belief that there's something, but he really, that whole thing was really like, he was saying everyone has an ethical baseline. Everyone does. Yeah. No matter what your belief system, or if you want to say non-belief system, but you still have one. Yeah. You have a system. And societies aren't built on anything but unified belief systems and ethics that are built on those, right? So there's absolutes based on your own ideologue. So, whatever your ideology is, you have absolutes based on that. It's irrational and really stupid to have something that says anything goes. Even himself, it's insane. It doesn't make any sense, and it's kind of stupid. So it's essential. Your ethics are essential for how you do everything, but especially how you work, because that formulates not only like how you approach work, whether it's on time or what you do at work. Do you only just skim by, or whatever? That formula, your ethics formulate those things, and it's really imperative. So his whole thing was basically that ethics are essential for a civilization to flourish. And there must be a unified basis for ethics to be successful, not just in work, but in life.
Well, I mean, it's funny we talk about this because there's two Bible verses that I love, and one has to do with ethics and one has to do with work ethic. Mm-hmm. And the one that has to do with ethics, there's actually two. First, there's Colossians 4:6. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. Right? So, you can live out and affirm your faith in the workplace, but in conversation, what comes out of our mouths matters, right? Like it makes a difference. So to be honest at work, to be forthright at work, to admit you've made mistakes, to ask for help when you feel like those are all ethical things that we do, right? Because if we're truly striving to be good at what we do, then we're going to be ethical about it. You know, one of the big examples, I used to be in sales, and man, guys would cut your throat and lie and cheat and steal. And it just disappointed me so much that was the case, right? And then looking down past to the next one, you know, James 1:22, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Be honest, kind, patient, caring, you know, all of those things. But then, you know, here's one of my personal favorites. This is Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Even in, you know, as a Christian male, if I don't do well at work one day, or I make a bad choice or decision, I carry something with me that's a little bit more weighty. I haven't just disappointed myself, I've disappointed God, because I didn't go in there and work with joy and heart. And, you know, I've struggled with that as of late. You know, you get tired, you get beat down, and you start to not necessarily resent work, but see it as something that you're kind of forced to do. And I've had to kind of correct that ship over the last few weeks, because I'm lucky, man. I'm doing something I love to do. Am I getting rich off of it? No. Am I making enough to feed my family and keep us stable? Yes. And it's growing because it's blessed, because I pray that God gives me the strength and the ability to help people. And, you know, I personally think that work ethic and work ethics are not separate things. They're completely tied together, right? Like a lot of people think those are separate things. Well, I can work hard, but I can cut some corners over here. And, you know, maybe I won't tell this guy about this opportunity, or maybe I'll try to, those are tied together, because as a person of faith, if I want to be blessed in both, I have to practice both. Right. So, and I'm working on that. It's a work in progress, right? Because, you know, I'm a guy at work where when I'm working hard, I'm not focusing a lot on what's going on around me. I'm just working hard. Right. And unfortunately, I need to work on that ability to focus on the things around me, help others, you know, and do those things to the best of my ability.
You know, God set Adam on a path of work.
Yep.
Right out of the Garden of Eden. It is established from the beginning of our existence that we screwed up. Now we got to work.
Yep.
And that work applies to all kinds of things. We work on, like we've said, we work on our marriages. We work on being a dad. We work on, you know, being men, but you got to work. You got to work to survive.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there's no good thing that comes when you're lazy. There's good things when you come from being restful and you take a rest, but you know, laziness isn't prized. I mean, there's no religion, no platform that says, hey man, be lazy. Lazy is good. No one said,
yeah.
Right. I mean, that's not anywhere. So productivity isn't necessarily a measure of success, but it should be part of your work.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. But worrying about it is where that is unfaithful.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to make that distinction. It's to me, it's funny that when I work for a corporation and you we made this much money, and you're just, and you know, it's easy to fall into the trap of going, well, look at my measly paycheck compared to this. that ain't your job. You know, you don't know how much, what goes in here, what goes in there, what negotiate. You have no idea, especially a company my size. There's so like, you can't fathom the amount of people and resources it takes to do X, Y, Z. Yeah, okay. Systems are broken. Sure. People, there's some pretty bad people here and there around every company there is that, like, you just wonder how in the world but that shouldn't affect your work ethic. You should still look not at that as the example of what to do or what's right or wrong, or it's kind of a, you can do that, why can't I kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, if you don't base your work ethic off of that. You really have to look at who exemplifies work ethic, who's successful in your company, who's successful in life. And I think you'll find that it's not the people who just sit on their hands or just get by. You know, no one runs a Fortune 100 company that sits on their hands.
Mm-hmm.
No one. There's not a single one of those CEOs or CFOs or CIOs who have time to do anything. It's not there. If you've never known any of these C-level people, you have no idea. And I guess I'll plainly say that I do. And I've had many conversations with them. And I know anybody from like a VP up, they're probably overworked. Now they might like it. They might be more than likely they're like a workaholic.
Well, they could be one of that hyper 1% of men or women that
yes.
are willing to sacrifice everything for that success. Yes. Right. You know, so that,
but yeah, I mean, and I think as a Christian man, as a Christian woman, and just a Christian who's in the workplace, you just need to, your example isn't who is sitting next to you. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe they're like really good at what they do and, you know, they work hard, but you need to be that example. I mean, look, why can't you do it? You know, maybe somebody's better at the job than you, but that doesn't mean that you need to work less than they do. Maybe you need to work harder. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're working really hard. I don't know, but don't sit on your hands or just look at work. Are you holding what you've done at your job up to God and say, hey man, I'm doing my best here. This is for you. Would you do that? You know, I have to ask myself all the time sometimes.
Oh yeah. Like, you know, one of the things that, you know, I'm a big believer in is our bodies are temples for God's work, right? Like, and I ask this question all the time, and some of the people that are listening to this are going to know and recognize. But, you know, when I was speaking to someone at one point, and this was a fellow Christian, he was struggling with some weight loss and some gluttony issues. I just looked at him and I said, all right. I said, so let's say you opened your front door and at your dinner table was God. And God said, so-and-so, I'm going to give you a brand new church. It's going to be the most beautiful, most gorgeous, most ornate, most intricate church that's ever been built. He says, and I want you to take care of it. What would be the first thing you would do? I said, would you go in and work hard to keep it clean and work hard to keep it healthy and work hard to do the things that make it do the job that God wants it to do? Or would you go in and spray paint the walls and poke holes in the, I was like, now ask yourself that very same question about the temple that God gave you, which is your body. And then tell me if you're doing the right things, right? And don't get me wrong, we all fall off, right? But, you know, I think that honoring God through what we do is a necessity. I don't think it's really, you know, and I say this purely, everything that I have right now is because he gave it to me.
But
you know,
I think we get wrapped up here in our culture about what we consider to be big things.
Yeah.
And we place value on things different than what God does.
Yeah.
Every little thing
Absolutely
matters for him. If I go out and I cut my grass and I do a really good job, that's cool. I just glorified God cutting my grass.
Yeah.
Okay. If I cut down a tree and I cut it down and I'm like, woo, I mean, I just did a good thing. I just did good work. I just glorified him doing it. That's what I mean. I mean, like the silliest stuff, dude, picking up a piece of garbage on the side of the road and throwing it away. I mean, look, all those little things, they matter. I mean, that's why when people say, I don't know what my purpose is, you know, it's like, you may never know what your purpose may have been fulfilled 3 years ago when you like talked to that homeless man and gave him $5 and all of a sudden he was able to buy lunch and kept him alive for a day in order for somebody else to help him out again, that he actually got off his feet and did something else. Like, you know, these little things matter. Like, and look, I'm not saying that we need to like have like a party every time you like, you know, you go brush your teeth, but we just have to take our own misconception of reality that we live in his reality.
Yeah.
And that his priorities and his tasks and are just way different than what we are humans think about things. Now we're designed to, I mean, we're specifically designed to operate in this particular reality and universe we live in. I mean, we have a specific set of senses and musculature and all this stuff to operate in here for a reason. So, I mean, I just say that. I mean, like, you know, the little task you do, the little conversations you have. Look, nothing is big or small. It all matters. Now, that does, and again, your salvation is not based on your tasks.
Yeah.
You're just trying to glorify God, doing what you can.
Well, I mean, and
that's it.
You just want to make sure that, you know, be humble, man. You know, be humble and work hard. If you can follow those two tenets and, you know, be good to the people around you and be helpful to the people around you, you know, you got it made. I think if you can just keep those principles, work hard and be humble, you know, keep a student's mentality. The moment you think you know it all, you've lost, right? The moment you think you know everything, you've lost.
I want to. There's a list of 35 things that Jordan Peterson points out to have a good work ethic. You know, we don't have time to go through all 35, but we'll put it in the description. But some of these are exactly what you're talking about. Like, and I think one of them that a lot of people struggle with: show up on time.
Yeah.
And I think that's just for me, showing up on time is like a respect thing. You're just showing that you give a damn and you're going to be there on time. One of the other things that we got to do in a work environment, and this is especially true in a corporate environment that is rife with, you know, you're trying to stand out, you're trying to get that stuff, but be generous with sharing credit.
Mm-hmm.
In the IT field, this is extremely a thing. You know, there's a lot of developers. There's a lot of people working on projects and software and solutions and stuff. And it's easy for somebody who's like a team lead or something to just be like, yeah, here's what I did. When it wasn't you. It was like, you know, this group of people behind you. It's easy. And look, it's important to make sure you're sharing credit.
Huh.
Make sure your goals at work line up with your goals in life.
Yeah.
What are you trying to do at work? What are you trying to do in life? Are they going the same direction? Because if not, you got a problem.
Well, that's something that I've struggled with in the beginning of my path down personal training, but I figured something out. My goals in my job are to help as many people as I can become as healthy as they can be, the best version of their self as they can be. that's really my same goals at home. Help my family become the best version of themselves, the best that they can be. That's really my goal at church. Help people understand and know Christ better and become the best Christian they can be. Whether my managers or my owners share my mindset, I'm not so concerned with. It's my mindset that I'm concerned with, right? Like, I'm fully aware that people aren't going to fully agree with me or fully be on the same page with me, but that doesn't change the page I'm on, right? It's my page. It's no one else's. And part of that too is, being a Christian at work is part of that is showing respect. I think showing up on time, being prepared, those are just signs of respect, right? It respects the people you're working for. It respects the people you're working with. Nothing's worse than when you're trying to put a team together to do something. And this is something that frustrates me to no end. We'll have a quote unquote team meeting, and 2 out of 8 people will show up, and the rest of them cancel the day of the meeting. And the excuses are garbage. I'm sorry. It's, I forgot this. Well, then you need to get organized, right? Or I didn't remember this, or, hey, I just didn't remember the meeting. Well, that shows me where your priorities lie, right? If you can't remember the very basic thing you're supposed to remember for that day, which is show up on time, be respectful of your peers, then I don't really think you're interested. Right. I think you feign interest, but I don't think you're interested. Right.
Here's another one that you find, and in today's world's different because there's a lot remote, but do not participate in office gossip.
Yeah, that's a struggle because it's very difficult. It's very difficult to get. Because a lot of times you're caught in the middle of it. You know what I'm saying? Like you're sitting in between the two people gossiping. But I mean, also discern the difference between gossip and constructive conversation. Like, you and a manager may have a constructive conversation about an issue going on with your team. You trashing Bill because Bill's hair, Bill's clothes, that's not productive at all.
Yeah.
Like that's just a train wreck, right? Like that has no place in the workplace, and we've all fallen victim. We get victim to it. We get aggravated and we say things, and that's part of it. But I don't, that's just on wholesale, just not productive at all.
And one that I like a lot is learn to say no when necessary.
Yes.
Because the worst thing for me as a manager is to have somebody where you ask somebody to do something and it's like beyond their capability, or they hate it completely, or they just know that they're going to do a terrible job because it's just whatever. And you don't say no. And then it becomes a struggle for me to get something done because I'm thinking you're just gonna get it done.
You're capable of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you don't tell me no, and then I'm like, then it's a really frustrating thing. If you just told me no in the beginning, we could have avoided all this.
Well, no is also not always a negative answer, right?
No, it's not.
It's sometimes no followed by an explanation why you said no shines a light on a way you can help somebody. For me, another one is be dependable. If you say you're going to show up, show up. If you say you're going to do something, do it.
Yeah.
Which kind of folds into that, right?
It does. And this is something I don't, in the past, I've had other people like make all these promises.
Yes.
And it never comes true. Right. And it could be, so I really don't do, I don't make any promises unless I know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like I've already set the ball in motion. I know that's been approved or whatever the case may be. I flat out will not do that because it just misleads everybody. It creates resentment when it doesn't get done for some reason. Now, sometimes that's going to happen because of one thing or another, but in general, in a corporate environment, you know when there's something that's going to happen for what that you can make happen. So it's like whether it's a position, a promotion, or some kind of thing. Don't make false promises.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. Yeah. I'm just advising any manager out there, any executive, don't do it. Don't make a promise. Don't say you're going to do something unless it's going to get done. Don't do it.
Yeah.
And I would say this too, if you're not making notes if you're a managerial person, a leadership position, you're not taking notes about things throughout the day and all this stuff, you're doing it wrong. You're not going to remember all this crap, and you're going to let somebody down.
Yeah.
And then you're not going to keep your word. And then your credibility just went down a notch because you just didn't do something. Now, forgetting stuff look, there's all kinds of chaos that happens, but make that the vast majority of the time.
Well, and also realize that I don't care who you are. I don't care how good you are. You're going to make a mistake. So there has to be a little bit of leeway for that to happen.
That's the be honest part.
Yeah. That's the be honest part.
That's he calls it, where is it at? Well, he says something about, listen carefully and tell the truth.
Yeah.
Well, the listen carefully part's important because obviously no matter if you're the janitor or you're the CEO, you better be practicing some good listening skills, and you better learn those because it's important no matter who you are to listen and do it carefully. And I think that's carefully is a proper word to put here, but tell the truth. Like, that's the other thing. Do what you say you're going to do. Don't lie. Don't mislead people don't. And, from I'll say this with my team, I'm really blunt and honest with how the team is doing when it comes to whatever executives are asking me about things. I'm not going to relay to them exactly what everything is being discussed because that wouldn't get anything done. But I can relay to them in a general sense about hey, I don't know, utilization or something. I can kind of talk to that and say hey, this isn't where it needs to be. We need to make some action to do this and whatever. But you got to be intentional about how you portray the truth, but make sure it's the truth.
Yeah. Well, another one for me is be there for others, right? If you have a coworker that can't get something done and they reach out to you and say, hey, I'm stuck. I can't get here. I can't do this. As frustrating as it might be to you or as derailing as it might be, that's a great way to be there for others. And as well as if a coworker comes to you and says, hey man, I'm struggling. Do you have a minute? Carve out a minute for that person, right? Listen to them. That might be your opportunity. And if you're too quick to dismiss, then that opportunity's gone. It's not coming back. That boomerang's not coming back around. Because once you set the precedent, I can't talk to him or her, you're the person that they can't talk to, right? You've literally concreted that. And in my early work career, I was really driven to get promoted and go into management and then get into operations and administration. I was very guilty of that.
No,
I don't want to hear your garbage. We got to get this done. When really what I should have done has been, let's set up a minute to sit down and talk and see what's going on, right? And, I've had some very good mentors in my last 10 years that kind of showed me that when someone asks for help, they're asking for a reason, right? So
here's one that's not really worldview based, really. It's just about be the guy that is as close to indispensable as you can be. And what I mean by that is have a skill set that is critical for a business function, right? Do what no one else is going to do.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself is a key to success that I have exemplified over and over again. There's been so many times in my career where because I was the guy who went, because I said yes to everything. You'd be like, can you do this? Yes. And I said no when it was something I knew that ain't going to happen. But if it's something I knew I could accomplish, whether it's a brand new skill but I knew I could figure it out. yes. And I say yes. Because of that, though, I became the go-to guy for like years. I got engagements and projects and stuff done and was capable of doing that no one else did. I made revenue happen because I said yes, because no matter if it was me learning something new or whatever, I just said yes and I got it done. And became that indispensable guy. Even now, I am a key to success for my company in the business segment I'm in. And that's not me saying that. That's coming from leadership. I'm a key success point. And I didn't get there because I wasn't late. I was on time. I did what I said I was going to do. I gave blunt feedback that was honest and productive. I was successful. Yeah, I screwed up sometimes, and I owned up to it. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. So in the corporate landscape where there's 20,000 of you out there, you gotta like be the guy who says yes, because it doesn't matter I'm telling you, it doesn't matter your skill set, your attitude, and like what you're capable of learning in a short term period of time, and what you're willing to do paves the way for a path that others don't have. And that goes back to glorifying God. I mean, God gave me my superpower is problem solving. I don't know how I got to that point, but it's like if there's a situation that needs a solution that is like weird or it's not whatever, I have no fear and will just tackle it. And it doesn't even matter if it's at work. It's just weird how I am, man. And I just can. I can just I'll just tackle it and I'll get it done.
Well, for me, my thing is in what I do is how broad is my spectrum, right? How many certifications do I have? So that's why I'm always wanting to continue education, because the more things that I have in my hip pocket that I've gotten good at, that I've gotten accomplished at, the better off I am when it comes to the broader spectrum of people I can help. So the fact that I like to work with people who have pretty extreme physical challenges, or may have had, some pretty deep reconstructive things going on in their life, right? That they need physical help with. It's my responsibility to be available for them, right? It's nobody else's responsibility to be available for them. So, and part of that is let your actions speak louder than your words, man. If you, and what I mean by that is not, be the only person willing, but just be willing, man. Anybody can say, yeah, I'll learn that, and then forget about it. And then, or go on to Google and pick up one blurb and think they've got it, right? But if you really want to let your actions speak louder than your words, again, student's mentality, always be learning. The action of learning creates the action of success. The action of success creates the action of being a top earner, right? They all kind of fall into each other. But also know that there has to be patience exercise in that, right? Like a lot of people, especially in I've beat on you guys a little bit today, and I'm very sorry. Our younger generation, they want instant success. That does not exist.
No.
Only when a guy wins the lottery, that's a one in a million thing. It's the person who's willing to put the grind in, who's willing to work the long hours, who's willing to try to acclimate to new different roles. That's the guy that's going to be successful. The guy who's entrenched in one thing, as of late, I've had to branch out into other things. Has it been comfortable? No, at times it is not. But I know that if I do this and learn to do these things, I'll be far more successful. Right. So, Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. Like
There's a couple more on here I want to touch on real quick.
Okay.
I'll put this down in the description, but object to stupid new rules. So where he's going with it? Look, if you have a situation, and this is real corporate stuff here. There's a time to object and there's a time to not. And there's a discernment that has to happen to know if this is a rule that's really going to be followed. Or are they just putting that in there because they're trying to meet some kind of public image thing or whatever, right? There's all kinds of this stuff that we have to understand in the corporate world. But there are times though when your immediate supervisor will say, here's this new rule for our group, for the team or whatever. And if it's stupid, you need to object to that. And if it doesn't make any sense, object to it. Don't do it rudely or whatever, but professionally speaking, you know what you do and say it. Well, this is going to do this. Object to it. I think that's a great rule. The other thing I wanted to say, he says, buy clothes that are slightly better than what you can afford. And what he's talking about there is that age. I think this is where he's going, because I think this is his 12 rules for life, is like that old adage of dress for the position you want, not for where you're in.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's where I'm getting this from. But that remote, it's kind of, that's important. If you get on that video and you look like, you got your lounge pants, well, they can't really probably see your pants, but you got like a holy t-shirt on or something, that doesn't look good. No. It doesn't show up really well. But at the same token, you're remote. So there is a little leeway there, but I usually try to wear a collared shirt when I'm remote. Mm-hmm. But I'm actually even thinking about amping that up a bit too. I'm probably not going to wear a sport coat, but I'm thinking about just going up a notch though. I mean, that's just for me. Cause I was thinking about all this stuff for work and I'm like, the one thing, cause I used to wear just t-shirts all the time. And it's like, as an engineer consultant or the solution architect or whatever, it was like no big deal. But for me, now that I'm wearing collared shirts and all this kind of stuff, yeah, I think I'm going to step that up a bit, but okay. Anyway, he has a bunch here, but I guess there's a lot of ways to talk about this, but as far as a work ethic goes, the one thing for work that I caught from a article that, from his 12 rules of life was do not do work you hate. Now he says, look, part of Jordan Peterson, what he's talking about is like, always have your resume up to date, always be able to do like lateral moves and all. There's a whole bunch there. Don't have fear of like finding something new or whatever. So, but at the end of the day, there's like an overarching thing where he's talking about like when you're doing work you hate, it builds resentment and it infects everything in your life. And that goes back to what we talked about, how work is like the majority of what we do. Mm-hmm. If that's stuff you hate, it's gonna just affect everything. And you got to take care of that. If it's not something that you enjoy doing, stop. Go find something else. And it's not going to be, that is not the right path for you, period. So that's what I got, man, for some work.
Me too. That's a lot.
Yeah. And we did work in order to talk about work.
Yeah. Which seems redundant, but it wasn't.
Well, we do. I mean, look, we put a lot of effort in these things, man. I mean, because it's important. And again, being prepared.
Yeah.
That's what leads to success.
Well, we were talking about that earlier. You and I aren't doing this as a fluke. We believe in what we're doing or we wouldn't be sitting here. We're not the type of men that just do things to do things, right? And the work that goes into this to me doesn't seem like work. It seems almost educational at times, right? Like I'm learning.
Well, we're not. Okay, I hope this is clear. We both of us are not saying we're experts in any particular field of study.
Not at all.
I mean, now I would say like, okay, being a man, being a father, stuff like that is very much like, no, we're not psychologists and have studied fatherhood over the years, but we are fathers. We've been fathers over different situations.
Life experience is huge.
Been men for a long time. Know what that's about, right? I mean, so there's some things that I can say, yeah, I know what that. I got my stamp of like, yeah, I'm an expert. I'll say that. Yeah. But I mean, look, we're talking in general to try to help people from a real dude perspective. And this work conversation between us is really. It's really that. It's like it's a guy from a corporate world who's been there for a very long time and a guy who's doing stuff in a public forum that's at, a mom and pop fitness place, whatever. And those two experiences can relate to a lot of different people. And it's really just about helping people understand they're not alone. And there's avenues that you can look at to kind of improve your circumstances. And we're not afraid to tackle some of these.
Well, and it's also
topics.
Good to say that it's okay to question what you're doing. It's okay to be reflective and wonder, are you doing the right thing? What's not okay is for you to come to a realization where you're not doing the right thing, but choose to stay there out of fear.
Yeah.
Right. Whether that be a relationship you're in, whether that be a job you have, whether that be, whatever that situation is, it's okay to, from time to time, to sit down and self-check and be like, hey, am I doing the right thing?
There's another, I forgot about this one. There's one point I wanted to make here is that sometimes there's a lot more things going on that's more important than what you're doing for work. Mm-hmm. So I'll say that I'll speak to this from direct experience. Like there are many times when I've had other job offers that were exponentially better than what I had financially, may have been even a career move in the right direction to move me up the ladder kind of stuff. But I've said no, not because I was fearful of doing it, but because it was going to be like a travel gig again, where I had to go some places and all this stuff. And having young kids and stuff and just wanting to be around to be the dad I want to be was more important than a lateral move or a promotion or whatever the case may be. And that's okay. Cause you've just established your priorities where they need to be established. And it's important for people to understand you don't always have to move up. You don't always have to be promoted. You don't always have to, okay, there's a point where you got to say, okay, is that worth the sacrifice I'm going to have to make somewhere else? Mm-hmm. Is that where I want to put all my time at? Is that really where it is? Or I'm needed here. Well, if I do this, can I do those other things? Well, not as effectively. Then look, that's up to you. And again, prayer, seeking where that should go, or just using common sense to go like, okay, well, if this is clearly going to, I got a sick wife who's having all these issues, and now all of a sudden I'm going to be on the road for, 30 weeks out of the year. That's probably not what you should be doing, man. I mean, you got to take care of your own house, right? For sure. So I just want to say that, because in the IT world, especially where there's a lot of opportunity for people who travel, and especially in larger companies or higher profile consultancy gigs and stuff. Look, those are great. And look, if you're able to do them, go for it. It's a good experience. I've done it before. It's great, but it's okay to say no to. Yeah. But you gotta be able to be okay with it too. You gotta be okay to look back on it and go, okay, I did the right thing. Yeah. Because don't be regretful. I guess that's what I'm saying. But yeah, I think work is a part of life, and learning to glorify through your work is key. Learning to be thankful for your work is key. and just appreciating the opportunity you have to use your skill set to be productive in the world God created. That's key.
Couldn't have said it better. Man. Cool. Well, guys, this was another episode. Gals as well. I hope you all are enjoying it, and we'll see you next time on R&B Talks. See you guys.
Take care.